What's up, guys? UFC 313 main event got announced during the broadcast of UFC 311. I also wanted to go and talk all things UFC 311 post-fight and talk about that. A little bit out of Sean, Strickland, and Drakkar Du Plessis, Kevin Holland news, and all. I just want to go through some news today in the MMA world and, yeah, keep you guys updated on what's going on in the MMA space. So, starting off with that main event, UFC 313, which was announced as the main event, Pereira versus Ankalaev. Pereira shuts down the ducking allegations, and Ankalaev fights through Ramadan. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. I'm very happy that it's in Las Vegas at T-Mobile and it's not in Abu Dhabi, because maybe I have some conspiracies on those guys being on PEDs while in Abu Dhabi. Either way, listen, this is the matchup we all wanted. Pereira finally faces the wrestler of the division, although I don't think Ankalaev is like the strong wrestler everybody makes him out to be. But UFC 313 main event, Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira, the fight that everybody's been wanting. What are my thoughts on the matchup? I think that I'm first of all, I'm happy that Pereira is fighting Ankalaev. It's the only fight to make. I didn't want to see him fight Drakkar or go up to heavyweight or anything like that. But the matchup itself, I am going to be picking Alex Pereira by like a third round KO, TKO. I don't see the wrestling that everybody's talking about with Magomed Ankalaev. Like, people were talking about this guy like he's like the light heavyweight Habib, and I just don't see it. The only time you really saw this guy like spam wrestling was against Jan Blachowicz in their fight, where he was getting his leg chewed up in rounds 3 and 4, and also he took down Anthony Smith, which is like, it's Anthony Smith. He just curls up into a ball when there's any pressure whatsoever. But Ankalaev does deserve the title shot. Obviously, I think he's on like a 13 fight unbeaten streak. He has a draw and a no contest in there, but outside of that, he's unbeaten in his last 13. Most recent win against Rampage and beat guys like Johnny Walker, Anthony Smith. He hasn't beat anybody insanely good. Like, he hasn't beat like a Jan Blachowicz or a Yuri Prochazka or a Jamal Hill, but he fought Jan Blachowicz. They went to a draw, and that fight is very telling for Ankalaev. If you look at his fights recently, like the one against Rampage, I didn't think he looked all that impressive, I'll be honest. I think Pereira sleeps Rampage. Not to do MMA math, but Ankalaev is talking about how he's going to stand on the feet Pereira and he's going to knock him out on the feet. I think if Ankalaev does that, he's 100% getting chinned. Especially after the Jan Blachowicz fight, just shown how he deals with leg kicks. It wasn't very well. I mean, he's lucky that Jan Blachowicz wasn't able to defend takedowns, because he would have lost that fight. Because he got his legs absolutely chewed to shreds in that title fight between him and Blachowicz. But obviously, Ankalaev has a shot. There is a world where he goes out there and just takes down Alex Pereira over and over, exposes his wrestling, and wins a dominant decisions or gets a ground and pound finish. That's always a possibility. I just don't see it going that way. I think Alex Pereira will be able to keep it on the feet, where he's going to have a massive advantage, because if Ankalaev thinks he can stand up and strike with Pereira, he's going to have a rude awakening. He's going to look like a Jamal Hill. He's going to look like a Yuri Prochazka. Sure, Magomed Ankalaev has slick boxing on the inside, but Alex Pereira, I still think, has better boxing. I think he has better kicks, by far better kicks, way better left hook, better power, just all around. I mean, Ankalaev is not this knockout artist. Sure, he has knockouts against Johnny Walker, but outside of Johnny Walker, it's been a while since this guy's gotten a knockout. He finished Anthony Smith on the ground, but it's Anthony Smith, dude. That wasn't a knockout, so to speak. So, yeah. I'm very excited for this matchup. Like I said, I am going to be picking Alex Pereira by a third round TKO. Or KO. I just think he'll tune up Ankalaev with the leg kicks, and just Ankalaev's going to be hopping around the octagon like a rabbit, and then eventually he'll shoot a sloppy takedown, or try to, and maybe he'll catch a knee by Pereira, or he'll catch a left hook and he'll go down and Pereira will finish the fight. And also, for the people that are spread the narrative that Ankalaev's going to submit Alex Pereira, let's keep in mind this guy is 21-1 or 20-1, and he doesn't have a single submission on his record. So just keep that in mind, boys. Yeah, excited for this matchup. UFC 313. March 8th is going down. I hope all goes well and nobody pulls out with injury. Let's get this fight going. And also, the co-main event of this card actually got announced, which was Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. Surprised with this fight, I'm not going to be honest. I thought they would do Justin versus Dustin 3, or maybe Dan Hooker versus Max Holloway, just to give Holloway, I don't want to say a layup, but Dan Hooker is probably a good matchup for Max Holloway. But they went with Gaethje Hooker. Now, this fight's very interesting. Gaethje's coming off that absolute brutal KO loss to Max Holloway. By the time this fight happens, he will be 11 months removed without fighting. So that's very good for Justin Gaethje to take that time off. And Dan Hooker's on a run right now, man. With 2 split decision wins over Gamrot and Jalen Turner, and a win over Claudio Puelles, Dan Hooker showed that he's not washed, and he still got it, man. So what's going to happen whenever he collides with Justin Gaethje at UFC 313. I think this would be an absolute war back and forth. You know, I'm not sure who I'm picking because in 1 minute I'm like, man, Gaethje, if he took 11 months off, we've seen him come back from knockout losses before and look good. Well, on the other hand, it's like Dan Hooker's got the momentum. He's on a run. He hasn't lost in a bit. And, you know, maybe he has that extra motivation that Justin Gaethje doesn't have. Justin Gaethje's 36 years old, coming off the most brutal KO loss of his career. But with all that being said, I do think ultimately I am going to pick Justin Gaethje. I'm going to expect him to return in at least decent form. And I think even a decent Justin Gaethje just pieces up Dan Hooker on the feet. Let's not pretend like Dan Hooker dominated his last two fights. You can argue that he lost to Gamrot. It was a very close fight. And it was also a split decision over Jalen Turner. And then he beat Claudio Puella. So Dan Hooker's not going out there and destroying guys. You know, he's winning narrowly, but against good guys. But I don't know. I think Justin Gaethje's chin's going to be still a little bit there. He's taken 11 months off, so maybe he could still take the shots. But yeah, main event, Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev. Co-main event, Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker. I am hyped. I think this is going to be a great card. I think they announced some fights on the undercard as well. I think Joshua Van's returning against Bruno Silva on this card, so that'll be a banger of a matchup. And yeah, I'm excited for it, boys. Let's get on to the next bit of news I wanted to talk about, which is Kevin Holland loses his entire fan base. If you guys have been living under a rock and you haven't seen, Kevin Holland went on the Rampage Jackson podcast recently, and he kind of got into like a beef with Rampage Jackson about ammunition and how he doesn't joke around like that, and telling Rampage F you and all this stuff, because Rampage made a joke about him doing this with Michael Venom Page in their fight at the weigh-ins, and Rampage said it looked like two women scissoring, and Kevin Holland's offended by that. So he goes on the podcast, makes a complete ass of himself. And yeah, man, Kevin Holland's entire career is a cope, and he knows he'll never become champion. So the way he copes with that is trying to pretend like he doesn't care about being champion. Why do you care about the belt? I don't care about the belt. Why are you so worried about it? You don't even fight. It's like, dude, at the end of the day, if you're getting to mixed martial arts and you're not fighting for the belt, it's kind of a joke, because this is not a job where you want to be getting your face broken for minimal money. Why wouldn't you want the belt? You talk about making money. The belt is the pinnacle of money in the UFC. This guy's an absolute copester. He copes about everything. He just lost to Rainer de Ritter because I don't think he was really focused on the fight. He doesn't do specifics training. He said it himself. He fights at 185, which is an absolute joke because he walks around at 185. And while I commend people for fighting at their natural weight classes, we're in a sport where guys like Rainer de Ritter are weighing in at 212 pounds on fight night, and Kevin Holland is weighing like 190. He was literally outweighed by 22 pounds. You wonder why he got out-grappled by Rainer de Ritter and easily submitted. He was never going to stop that takedown. This guy should be fighting at 170. He should be disciplined, but instead, he'd rather take the path of most resistance so he can have a coat for his losses and say, oh, I fought a way bigger fighter. Of course he's going to take me down. Or, oh, I struck with Wonder Boy. Of course I'm going to lose on the feet. And it's like after his Rampage Jackson appearance and he does more coping about his career and not caring about the belt, I think this guy's lost like 80% of his fans. I mean, Kevin Holland was known as that guy who took on all comers during 2020. He went 5-0, knocking out Drakkar, taking on all those fights, and he earned a lot of respect in the eyes of the fans. But to just go on the Jackson podcast, disrespect Rampage Jackson, who made a lighthearted joke and make an ass of himself about ammunition. And Kevin Holland's ego is absolutely out of control. And if he doesn't pull it together and start training specifics or actually start taking his career seriously, this guy's going to get cut from the UFC. He's 1-4 in his last 5. His only win coming against Mikhail Alexeychuk. Outside of that, he's lost 4 fights, and it's like, at what point is it going to give with this guy? Because now he doesn't have any fans, so maybe he just turns full heel because he doesn't have any fans already, and he says, F the fans, I don't care. But yeah, man, it was just frustrating to see this guy go on Rampage's podcast, disrespect a legend, and do some more coping about his career. It's like, if this guy actually took his career serious, he would never be champ. I don't think Kevin Holland's championship material, but he could get more money, as he says he cares about so much. He can get those top 10, top 5 matchups if he just trains specifics. I mean, this guy has an 80-inch reach fighting at welterweight if he cut down. That's insane. If he just kept guys on the end of his punches, I don't know, he could be a such better fighter. But Kevin Holland just decides to live in Copeland, so what can we do about it? Yeah, I just wanted to go over what happened with Kevin Holland and why everybody has been turning against him. Like I said, if you've been living under a rock, it's because he's been acting like an ass recently on Rampage's podcast. Look it up if you haven't seen it already. Let's get on to the next thing, which is Sean Strickland challenges Drakkar Du Plessis to stand and bang. Now, I thought this was hilarious. Sean Strickland tweeted a video telling Drakkar Du Plessis he wants to stand, don't grapple, no grappling, stand up and bang like men. This is hilarious. Drakkar kind of politely declined in his reply. But for Sean Strickland, he was always like clamoring to do the man dance and to stand and bang. This guy literally will throw teeps and jabs for 5 rounds and fight like an absolute coward. Look at his fight with Paulo Costa. Look at his fight with literally any Sean Strickland fight. The only time you see a Sean Strickland fight not go in his favor is whenever he's pushed back, which is why he took so much damage against Drakkar, because Drakkar did a good job at pushing him back. But Sean Strickland and his whole like man dance and stand it out and bang, he's not even about it, dude, because he doesn't even bang. He literally sits behind his little Philly shell and teeps and jabs the entire fight, scared of actual exchanges, because look what happened whenever he had an actual exchange with Alex Pereira. He got sent to the Shadow Realm because he couldn't just teep and jab Alex for 5 rounds. But no, honestly, looking at this matchup for UFC 312, first of all, the UFC 312 is absolute garbage. It's an abomination of a card. The UFC should be ashamed of themselves. But Sean Strickland versus Du Plessis, I think Drakkar Du Plessis wins this rematch. And the reason why is because this stand and bang thing by Sean Strickland kind of proves my point of why Drakkar wins. Sean Strickland's the same fighter every single time he walks in the octagon. He's the same fighter. He walks forward, he throws teeps, he throws jabs, and that's pretty much it. You don't really see anything out of Sean Strickland unless it's the last 10 seconds of the fight. He either narrowly wins a round or he comfortably wins it. He never like dominates a round, so to speak. But Drakkar Du Plessis is a guy who's shown he can make amazing game plans. Look at the Izzy fight. Had a good game plan. Knocked him down, eventually took his back and submitted him. Just an overall good game plan. Look at the Robert Whittaker fight. Beat him definitively, you know? Drakkar Du Plessis, even the Sean Strickland fight in the first time, I think if he'd have been more grappling heavy, he might have took less damage. But I think Drakkar Du Plessis is a fighter that's still evolving, and Sean Strickland's finished product. He's the same guy every single fight. So I don't see a world where Sean Strickland beats Drakkar Du Plessis with his same little flimsy style of fighting. So yeah, I am going to be picking Drakkar Du Plessis by finish this time. I think he's going to submit Sean Strickland. And no, I don't think that that he will oblige with Sean Strickland and stand and bang as Sean Strickland asked him to do. I think Drakkar is going to mix in the takedowns. It's a mixed martial arts fight at the end of the day. So yeah, looking forward to this, honestly. Like I said, I think it's embarrassing that this is one of the only good cards on UFC 312. I'm not even kidding. Go look at the card if you don't believe me. It's terrible. It's a joke to the Australian fans, but looking forward to this rematch, and I do think Drakkar gets it done. Let's get on to the next bit of news, which was Islam Makhachev has submitted 5 black belts. I thought this was a crazy stat. This guy, I had checked who have black belt and who don't have real black belt. It's so true, man. After his recent submission over Renato Moicano, he's officially submitted 5 black belts on the UFC in the form of Renato Moicano, Dustin Poirier, Charles Oliveira, Thiago Moises, and Kajan Johnson, I think his name was. Islam Makhachev proving why Sambo is more effective than BJJ on the ground. I don't know if you can actually say that, but it does seem like in the grappling exchanges at the highest level, BJJ versus Sambo, it does seem like in the UFC that Sambo tends to prevail a lot. From what I see, I mean, Khabib also submitted Dustin Poirier. I know that's not the best idea of a black belt, but, you know, it just goes to show how good this guy Islam is. I wonder if Islam even has I know he has a judo black belt and he's a master of sport at Sambo, but I wonder if he even has a ranking in jiu-jitsu. If he did, he'd obviously be a black belt, but I wonder if he's ever like trained jiu-jitsu specifically. But yeah, man, I agree with Islam. I know there's a lot of memes going around the whole black belt thing. I have to check who has black belt, but it's like a lot of these guys, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that a lot of these guys have jiu-jitsu black belts isn't because their jiu-jitsu skills are up to par, but it's more on knowledge of the craft. Apparently you get your belts in the system of jiu-jitsu by knowledge and not actually like how good you are at physically doing the submissions. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but that would make sense, because I'm sorry, man, Dustin Poirier, he doesn't do jiu-jitsu like a black belt, man. He makes a lot of mistakes on the ground, pulls silly guillotines and pulls submissions he shouldn't pull, and it's like Charles Oliveira is a legit black belt, obviously. He got submitted by Islam after getting knocked down. That wasn't like Islam out-grappled and submitted him, you know? But it's just like guys like Thiago Moises have been out-grappled multiple times by guys who aren't necessarily ranked high as him in black belts. And it's like, it is kind of weird to see guys who seem to have subpar grappling or struggle in the grappling a lot have what people call one of the highest level of jiu-jitsu rankings. It is weird to see guys have black belts whenever they're getting submitted by guys who have never trained jiu-jitsu, but yet they train judo and combat sambo, which I guess is a good replica of the martial art, just in a different form. But nonetheless, Islam Makhachev, he submitted 5 black belts. He proved this weekend that he is probably the best grappler. No, not probably. He is the best grappler at 155 and one of the best strikers. I don't know if he's the best striker, but he's one of them. And yeah, man, respect to Islam Makhachev, the number one pound for pound fighter in the world, submitting black belts, 15 fight win streak, lightweight GOAT, most title defenses. It's like this guy's doing it all. And yeah, can't wait to see who he's facing next. I personally think he should face the winner of Charles Oliveira and Arman Sarukian 5-round rematch, but we'll see. The UFC has said that they have, or his manager has said they have some very specific plan for Islam that doesn't involve anything to do with Topuria or Arman Sarukian. So we'll see, man. We'll see. Maybe it's going up to welterweight, face Bilal. Who knows? He said he doesn't want to fight Bilal. But either way, let's get on to the next bit of news, which is UFC 311 in cage result. I thought this was very interesting to look at. A lot of people like to call Islam a weight bully and other guys a weight bully, which first of all, I think the term weight bully is just silly. Like, if you can cut the weight and safely make the weight and fight, then more power to you. Why would you fight in your natural weight class whenever you're going to give up more weight to your opponent and you're going to be easily taken down like Kevin Holland and lose the fight? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a game of inches, and having a size advantage is a huge advantage. And if other guys are doing it, man, you have to do it. You think Islam's going to come in the cage weighing 160 and face Renato Moicano, who's weighing 181? It's insane. But either way, Islam actually was outweighed by Renato Moicano by 4 pounds. On fight night, Islam gained 23.5 pounds in the cage, whereas Renato, from weighing in at 155, went all the way up to 181, which is crazy because Renato, I guess he's long and lanky, but he didn't look like he was like bigger than Makhachev. I know it's only 3 pounds, but almost 4. But yeah, man, for all the weight bully accusations for Makhachev, I think this puts it to bed. Renato Moicano outweighed Makhachev on fight night by 4 pounds, just showing that he cuts even more weight. So yeah, Merab and Umar were actually the same exact weight in the cage, which is kind of great, being that they fought would seem an even fight. Nobody had a weight advantage. It was 156.8 versus 156.8. And yeah, Yuri and Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill actually had a 13-pound weight advantage, which is pretty crazy. We already know Jamal Hill cuts that beer belly water out. And yeah, he was bigger than Yuri. I think, man, you looking at these weight totals, you really do think that Yuri could go to middleweight and be successful. The fact that he's only weighing in at 208 pounds, that'd only be what how many pounds would that be for a cut? 23 pounds? I think he could do it if he truly wanted to fight at middleweight and challenge himself in a new division. Now, this is the one I really want to talk about. Reinier de Ridder goes up to 212 pounds when Kevin Holland's weighing 190. As soon as I saw that Kevin Holland weighed at 183 and Reinier de Ridder weighed at 185, I knew 100% Reinier de Ridder was winning this fight. 100%. I mean, this guy outweighed Kevin Holland by 22 pounds. There was never, unless he KO'd Reinier de Ridder, he was going to get out-grappled every single time, because a 22-pound weight advantage is 2 weight classes. That's insane, dude. Raoni Barcelos and Peyton Talbot weighed around the same. They both ballooned up to 158.2, so their fight was even in terms of size. But yeah, man, looking at this chart, it's actually crazy how much these fighters gain and lose in terms of the weight and how big they are on fight night. I was very surprised to see that Moicano outweighed Makhachev. And honestly, Reinier de Ridder outweighing Kevin Holland. I knew he was going to outweigh him, but 22 pounds outweighing him is absolutely insane. And whenever I saw that, I was like, wow, well, no duh, Kevin Holland got out-grappled. But yeah, it's Kevin Holland, so I guess it makes sense. And yeah, man, Jamal Hill being bigger than Yuri, it's interesting. This whole weight cage results really shows you how much these guys put their body on the line in order to be bigger in the cage, which I respect it to a degree. I know people crap on weight cut, but until the UFC gets rid of it, these guys kind of have no chance but to weight cut. Because if you fight at your natural weight class and you fight a guy who's bigger, you could lose to a guy just by size because he cut more weight than you. So if you're willing to risk your brain and being knocked out easier and cut the weight, then so be it, man. These guys, at the end of the day, have a fight to win, and they have to give themselves every advantage. Let's get on to the next bit of news, which was Umar making excuses. Now, it's always funny whenever you guys know, going into the Merab-Umar fight, I was picking Umar to dominate Merab. I just thought he was going to be able to stay on the outside, kind of just bully Merab with kicks and such. But I was wrong. I admitted I was wrong. And Umar has later come out and been making excuses left and right. The fight ended. After the fight, he's like, yeah, but I had no excuses, but I break my arm. I am blind. I have no hands. I fight with hands behind back. My head was bleeding, but no excuses, but all respect. Yeah, it's like, what do you mean no excuses, man? All you did was make excuses since the fight. Like, as soon as they handed the mic to Umar Nurmagomedov after he lost to Merab, the first thing that came out of his mouth was making a whole bunch of excuses, talking about his hand injury and talking about how he thought he won the fight. Like, bro, it's very clear that Merab won this fight 3-2, rounds 3, 4, and 5. And you can even argue he won the first round. So it's like, for him to say that he thought he won the fight. And then there was another excuse that came out that that Umar's coach Javier Mendez didn't know that he had the hand injury, and Umar never told him, and that's why he wasn't instructed to do different in the fight, which is interesting. I don't know if I believe that. Maybe he was scared of telling them about the injury because Habib would have scolded him, but yeah, it just seems like a whole bunch of excuses coming out of the Umar Nurmagomedov camp. You know, for a camp that prides himself on being humble, brother, they sure are making a lot of excuses for Umar. Habib and Javier Mendez and Umar himself are making a lot of excuses instead of saying, you know what, Merab was the better fighter. No excuses, because at the end of the day, every fighter comes in the fight with injuries. It's, if you guys watch the UFC as long as I have, you know that this injury thing, there's no reason to even bringing it up. Everybody fights injured. Shavkat fought Ian Gary with a torn MCL. It's like Umar fought Merab with a broken hand. It's like, at the end of the day, brother, you know the injuries you have, and if you're willing to step in the octagon with an injury, or if an injury happens in the fight, bro, that's the game. You get injured in fights. If you break your hand, and I guess the other guy just had stronger bones, didn't he? But it's funny that he makes these excuses about having these injuries, because Merab came out and he was also injured. I actually made a video on this leading up to the fight. Merab was injured as well. He had a very nasty infection on his leg that was still healing coming into this fight, and he had a back issue. But Merab fought through it, and he dominated Umar, I'd argue, in the latter rounds and made him look silly. So it really makes the fighter look bad. Like, if Umar just, like I said, if he'd have just came out and said, you know what, brother, I tried my hardest. We're going to go back in the gym. We're going to get better, and maybe I can get the rematch down the road. We would have respected him a lot more, instead of trying to cope and said, I had a hand injury, and my coach didn't know I had a hand injury, and I thought I won the fight. It's like, it just makes it look bad. It makes this whole humble attitude look fake by these guys out of Habib's camp. But yeah, man, like I said, every fighter's pretty much in, got bumps and bruises going into every single fight. Some guys like Merab have a jacked up back and infection healing on his leg. Some guys like Umar have a broken hand. It's just the name of the game, man. Guys rarely go into fights 100%. So yeah, I think these fighters coming out and talking about the injuries they had after the fight just really makes it look like a bad look. It makes it look like they're trying to make an excuse, like, oh, the other guy only beat me because I had a broken hand, or he only beat me because I had a scratch on my forehead. You know, it's silly. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. And speaking of injuries, the last thing I want to talk about on this video, Arman Tsarukyan. I have seen the articles and the videos coming out by a lot of MMA YouTubers. Was Arman injured? Was he not injured? And honestly, after doing some research and looking up and down the board at Arman's back injury, it does look a bit suspicious. I can't say definitively whether he was injured or not, but the way Dana White worded it in the press conference, and says, at the beginning of the press conference, they asked him about Arman's injury, and he said, we'll see how this thing plays out next year. So it's like, are they hiding something about Arman? Did he fail a drug test? What does Dana White mean by, we'll see how this thing plays out in the next year? Like, what does that mean? Did Arman test positive for a drug test? That's very suspicious for Dana White to word that way. And a lot of people are also, that's pure speculation, by the way. I'm not saying he did or didn't, but the UFC does not have to disclose if guys failed drug tests or not. So just keep that in mind. Also, Arman Tsarukyan was eating very suspiciously unhealthy leading up to the fight, eating pasta and just seemed to be stuffing his face with all the goodies. And this guy's not a small lightweight. I mean, this guy's a massive lightweight, and he cuts a lot of weight, and he's already shredded. So I could imagine it's hard for a guy like him to get his weight down than other fighters. And yeah, there's a lot of speculation that he injured his back whenever he was doing the workout with Nina Drama, or he injured his back. He said he injured his back when he was on a stationary bike, and now he came out on the Jackson podcast and talked about the whole back injury thing. I don't know. It does seem suspicious, but I can't definitively say, hey, Arman didn't injure his back. I wasn't there. It's pure speculation. But like I said, a lot of fans are scrutinizing Arman, saying that he pulled out of the fight because he wasn't going to make weight, not because he actually injured his back. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about that. That's ultimately all the MMA news I wanted to talk about. Just some aftermath of UFC 311, some announced fights at UFC 313, talking about the Drakkar fight. I thought it'd be interesting to make this a segment on my channel. Let me know if you guys think this is a great idea. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Leave a like on the video if I informed you of some new stuff in the MMA world sphere, brother. Wow, that was terrible. But yeah, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'm out, guys. Thanks for watching, and peace.